Hello, people. I am not in my normal setting, but hey, I'm still here. So, today I would like to talk about quadratic inequalities. I'm here to talk about those today. So, um, quadratic inequalities, I think for the most part, most of the students that are watching this video probably know how to solve an inequality, a linear inequality. Now we need to jump into something a little more complex, and it's quadratic inequalities. If you remember your rules on how to solve a quadratic equation, you should be okay. If you don't know how to solve a quadratic equation, pause this video and go to the video that shows you how to solve a quadratic equation. It's very, very, very important that you understand how to do that. I'm gonna talk through this video through a couple of examples. I'm gonna give you a list of steps on how to approach the problems. I think it's 5 steps. So let's jump right into this. Let's not even waste time. Let's just jump right into it. Let's go. Okay, let's jump right into this. We are solving linear, or no, not even linear. We're solving quadratic inequalities. And let's change this to inequalities. So let's start out with some steps, right? I'm gonna go ahead and put an example on the page and we're gonna talk through the steps, right? So here is a quadratic inequality. All right, our first example here. So some steps. The first thing you want to do, you want to make sure it's in standard form. And what I mean by standard form is ax squared plus bx plus c, and the 0 on the other side. If you look at this example that I put up here, you already have that. It's set up in standard form where everything is on one side and 0 is on the other. Now, step 2, we're going to change the inequality to equal sign and solve. Change the inequality to an equal sign and solve. So in this problem, I'm going to put x squared minus 5x minus 14 equals 0. Now you have to solve this. This is where your skills in solving need to come into play. I'm choosing to factor. I'm finding two numbers that I multiply to get negative 14, but when I add, I get negative 5. And that's how I chose to solve this quadratic equation. Now, you may choose to use quadratic formula. You got to figure out what works best. So I set each one of my parentheses equal to 0. I get 7 and negative 2. Now, step 3 is to plot the x values on a number line. So I'm going to draw a number line, and I'm going to put the two numbers on the number line. I have to put them in order, so I put the negative 2 first and then the 7. And I need to make a decision on whether I should put closed dots or open dots. Now, based on the inequality, it says less than or equal to. That means I'm going to put closed dots on this. So at negative 2 and at 7, I'm going to put closed dots there. I only do open if it's a strict inequality. Now, this is the step that is kind of different. I need to test each interval. So if you look at the screen, there's 3 different intervals that we have up here, and I have to test each one of them. So let me show you how you test it. So you pick a test point in each one of the intervals, and if it's true, you shade it. But if it's not true, you don't shade it. So you only shade the area that is true statement. And I'm going to show you what I mean by that. So like in this problem, you have this first interval. I'm going to pick a number that's within that first interval. I'm going to pick like negative 10. So you put negative 10 into the original inequality, the standard form, okay? I plug in negative 10 wherever I see x, and I'm trying to see if it gives me a true statement. When I condense everything, I get 136 is less than 0. That's false. So you don't shade that area, because when I plugged in negative 10, it didn't work. Now in the middle, I pick 0. And when I plug in 0, I end up getting negative 14. Negative 14 is less than 0. That's true. So I shade that area. Now, that last little interval I'm going to pick x equals 10. So x equals 10 is the number that I'm going to plug in for all the x values. Now, I'm plugging it in to the original, right? The one that's in standard form. And when I plug it in, I end up getting 36 is less than 0. That's not true. So I don't shade that area. I exit out. That's false. So my solution, when I go back up here, my solution is going to be the area that's shaded. That's what it says in step 5. Whatever area you have shaded is your solution. So that's bracket negative 2 to 7 bracket. Or I can write it negative 2, x is in between negative 2 and 7. That's another way that you can write it. So erase, 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 and let's try another example. Same steps. I'm going to keep the steps over here. Just write another example. So x squared minus 5x is greater than or equal to negative 4. Standard form is what I need. So I'm going to move the 4 over to put it in standard form. So I got my standard form, right? Everything is on one side, 0 on the other side. Now I replace my inequality with the equal sign, and I need to factor. So I go through and I factor. And when I factor, I set each one of my parentheses equal to 0. I end up getting 4 and 1. So I put those values on a number line. I put closed dots because it's greater than or equal to. And now I'm picking values in each one of my intervals to test in the standard form, right? So I pick 0 first because that's in that first interval. I plug it in. I end up getting 4 is greater than 0. True, okay? So we want to shade that area since it's true. Now for the next interval, I pick 2. When I plug 2 in, condense this, I end up getting negative 10 is greater than 0. That's false. So I don't want to shade that area. So the last interval, I pick 10. I plug 10 into the standard form, and it ends up giving me 100 minus 50 plus 4. That's going to be 54. 54 is greater than 0. That's true, so I shade it. So my solution is everything that is shaded. So let me write the shaded area in interval notation. That's going to be negative infinity to 1, bracket, 4 to infinity, parenthesis. Or you can write it x is less than or equal to 1, or x is greater than or equal to 4. That's the inequality notation. So let's try another example. 2x squared minus 15 is less than negative 7x. So first of all, I need to put this in standard form, right? So standard form means I need to move the 7x to the other side. And when I write it in descending order. So 2x squared plus 7x minus 15 is less than 0. Standard form. Everything on one side, 0 on the other side. Replace the inequality with the equal sign. Now I have to figure out a way to solve this. So I'm going to try another technique here instead of factoring. You definitely can factor this, but I'm going to go ahead and try the quadratic formula, which a lot of students is popular among students. So I just want to do one example where we at least use the quadratic formula so you know how to use it. So I plug in my ABC into the quadratic formula. And now I'm just condensing. I'm working underneath the radical first because I know 7 squared is 49. And then when I multiply negative 4 times 2 times negative 15, I end up getting 120. And then at the bottom, I got 2 times 2, which is 4. So let me continue to work underneath the radical. 49 plus 120 is 169. And I know the square root of 169. That's good. Square root of 169 is 13. So I put 13 and I got 4 at the bottom. So this is going to give me two different answers. Negative 7 plus 13 over 4, and then negative 7 minus 13 over 4. So this one at the bottom will be negative 5. And the one at the top is going to be, it will be 6 over 4, which reduces into 3 over 2. 3 over 2? Yeah, that's right, 3 over 2. So the two answers I got for my x value is 3 over 2 and negative 5. 3 over 2 and negative 5. If you would have factored, you would have got the same exact answer. So for those in the audience and that's watching this video, if you're more comfortable with factoring, you're going to get the same exact answers. You're going to get x equals 3 over 2 and x equals negative 5. I just want to show quadratic formula because that is an option you can use. So I put the numbers on the number line in order. So the negative 5 needs to go first. And this time we put open circles. Why? Because it doesn't say less than or equal to. It just says less than. So open circles. And we're going to test each one of the intervals. So I'm picking random numbers that are within the intervals. I picked negative 10, 0, and 10. I'm going to test it in the standard form and see if it gives me a true statement. The only one that's going to give you a true statement is the one in the middle. And you can try that on your own to make sure that I'm telling the truth here. And so x is in between negative 5 and 3 over 2 is your answer. So I wanted to go through that one example with the quadratic formula. And let's do one more example that's kind of different. I got 4x squared minus 8x is greater than 0. So it's already in standard form. We have everything on one side and then 0 on the other side. Good to go. So now we need to replace the inequality with the equal sign and solve. So in order to solve this, I have to factor out the GCF. And the GCF in this case is 4x. And when I factor out the GCF, I don't even need to factor any further. And you notice I set 4x equal to 0 and x minus 2 equal to 0. I only got two answers. It's x and it's got x equals 0 and x equals 2. So I put the 0 and the 2 on the number line. I pick the numbers in between each one of the intervals, and I'm going to test those in the original. I pick negative 1 in the first interval, I pick 1 in the middle, and I pick 3 at the end. And when I test negative 1, I end up getting that 12 is greater than 0, which is true, so I shade it. In the middle, I'm going to plug in 1, and that's going to give me something that is not true because negative 4 is not greater than 0, so I do not shade the middle. And then I test 3. I put 3 into the standard form. I get something that is 36, 24. I get 12. 12 is greater than 0, so I do shade. So I wanted to do this example because in order to solve the quadratic, I had to factor out a 4x and then I was done. I didn't have to factor any further. So I wanted to show an example that showed that where I got just 0 and 2. So that is your answer.
Okay, how you feeling? So as long as you know those 5 steps, I think you should be okay in solving quadratic inequalities. I do have another video on how to see the visuals of how to find your solution with quadratic inequality, because if you look at the parabola or whatever shape that your graph makes, you can kind of point out the idea of where the solution would be. And I have a video dedicated just to looking at the picture, looking at the graph on the XY plane and trying to find the solution for a quadratic inequality. So I have that video as well. I'll put it in the description for you to take a look at that. And that's it. Until next time, I'll see you. Bye.